Subterranean architecture began as a raw survival response to extreme climates, a way for early inhabitants to utilize the Earth's thermal mass to escape brutal surface heat or freezing winds. Today, those ancient survival bunkers and structural aqueducts have morphed into highly sought-after travel destinations. Slightly cynical, social media feeds present these locations as empty, magical fairy tales, but those perfectly cropped photos often hide the intense logistical compromises required to actually stand in those spots. We are going to analyze 3 drastically different underground destinations to determine exactly what physical and logistical inputs they require and identify who they are truly built for. To evaluate them objectively, this chart measures each location against 3 specific variables: their primary feature, how they adapt to the local climate, and their current state of preservation. The core architectural features of these sites are entirely distinct. We are looking at natural rock overhangs in Spain, excavated dugouts in the Australian outback, and a massive ancient aqueduct in Iran. And what that looks like today ranges from an active, gritty mining town to a highly commercialized shopping mall. Because these sites originated as survival tools rather than tourist attractions, their modern utility depends entirely on how much of that original, high-friction environment a traveler is actually willing to endure. First is Setenil de las Bodegas, situated deep in the Andalusia region of southern Spain. It is one of Spain's famous pueblos blancos, featuring whitewashed structures built directly into the rock face, effectively utilizing the natural landscape as a roof and built-in insulation. Getting here requires renting a car and navigating roughly 2 hours of winding rural Spanish roads from either Seville or Malaga. The payoff is high-end local culinary experiences, paired with a naturally climate-controlled environment that stays cool throughout the year. But that exact geography creates a severe bottleneck. Narrow streets limit parking entirely, and the daily influx of tourists turns those picturesque rock alleys into a claustrophobic shoulder-to-shoulder gridlock. If you attempt this trip during the summer, you will face exhaustion from both the severe Andalusian heat and the peak tourist density. Serious travelers rely on a specific workaround, mandating an overnight stay in the village or planning the trip exclusively during the spring or fall shoulder seasons. Setenil heavily rewards aesthetic-focused travelers, provided they possess a high tolerance for crowd navigation and strict logistical planning. On the opposite end of the spectrum sits Coober Pedy, located in the barren, unforgiving environment of the Stuart Range in South Australia. Committing to this destination means enduring a remote, high-friction journey deep into the Australian interior, completely devoid of standard luxury amenities. To handle surface temperatures that average 36 degrees Celsius, residents live in dugouts. These excavated rock homes maintain a steady 24-degree temperature without the need for building materials or traditional insulation. That harsh environment forces efficiency. The town currently generates 70% of its electricity entirely through wind and solar power. Coober Pedy remains a functioning, century-old active mining center that currently produces the bulk of the world's raw opals. The trade-off for that authenticity is a declining local industry and extreme isolation, resulting in an aesthetic that is incredibly raw and unpolished. Coober Pedy delivers pure, unfiltered historical survivalism, but demands the total sacrifice of modern travel comforts to experience it. Finally, we evaluate Kish, a resort island off the coast of Iran known for its comfortable, modernized tourist infrastructure. Beneath the resorts lies the Kiriz, a massive 10,000-square-meter underground water filtration aqueduct constructed roughly 2,500 years ago. Your required input here is traveling to an Iranian resort island and accepting up front that this ancient site has been heavily altered. Instead of preserving the raw coral and clay walls, developers reinforced the ancient tunnels with modern mortar to build a subterranean shopping complex. As a result, travelers gain incredibly easy, air-conditioned access to walk right through millennia-old engineering concepts. The central trade-off is that the integration of restaurants, traditional tea houses, and art galleries completely strips away the raw, historical atmosphere of the original structure. Kish is ideal for travelers who want to observe ancient engineering but refuse to surrender modern resort-level convenience. This flowchart shows that there is no universal best underground destination. There is only the location that precisely matches your personal tolerance for friction. If you prioritize striking photography, local food, and accessible road tripping, your ideal path leads directly to Setenil de las Bodegas. The mandatory caveat is that you must actively avoid peak summer dates, or the crowding will ruin the experience. If you want raw history, off-grid engineering, and completely unfiltered cultural immersion, Coober Pedy is your destination. The caveat here is strict. You must possess the budget, the time, and the grit to endure the isolated Australian outback. If you want to walk through ancient engineering concepts but demand modern resort-level amenities, you book a trip to Quiche. The cost is accepting that heavy commercialization will obscure the site's original historical purity. Executing a successful trip requires ruthlessly auditing what kind of logistical friction you are actually willing to endure before you book the flight. A successful trip isn't found by following a social media trend. It's found by choosing the destination whose specific logistical compromises you are most willing to accept.